That's one of the legendary rants.
We're live.
We are live. Welcome back.
Welcome back. I just want to say it's very warm here in the studio, and I'm loving it. It's delicious because I have a cold right now, and I also like hot. But it's reminding me of when we did Fox and Friends. I used to sneak in and change the thermostat. And you and Clayton wouldn't realize it until you were actually like sweating visibly on camera. And then you'd be like,
Which
did
you were okay with.
Oh, fine. And you'd be like, did you touch the thermostat? It would be about an hour into the show, and I'd have to confess. And then we'd have to crank it down again.
Here's the problem. Warm is sleepy. Cold is alert. When you're on television or a podcast like Sanity, you want to be alert. You want to be sitting upright. If I get hot, I like get all sleepy and I can just nod off and fall asleep. And you have a freaking sweater on, man.
Right, but what I think warm is relaxed, and cold is clenched. So I don't want to be clenched. I want to be relaxed. Which I am.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Well, welcome back to Sanity. I'm Dave Briggs here with Allison Camerata. We just talked to James Galliano, 25-year former FBI supervisory agent, and he had some interesting opinions about he's not as worried as we are, and we come from different sides of the aisle for the most part, and he is pretty confident that the FBI and the DOJ are in good hands.
I don't know how he can feel confident. Has said.
Is that the impression you got?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, he was saying he doesn't know Kash Patel, so he wasn't going to weigh in. But I don't need to know Kash Patel personally. I don't need to know him personally. I need to know what he has said, and what he has said has been quite worrisome. I need to know what his colleagues have said. What his colleagues have said about him is also worrisome. So I don't like that he wants to create retribution against journalists and against people who he considers political rivals or enemies of Donald Trump. I don't think that's democratic, so I don't need to know him personally.
I'm curious because his James' point was you can't judge someone by the worst thing they ever said on social media, or in this case, a book. I would actually argue otherwise. Judge me by the worst thing I've ever said on social media. Okay, like I could probably explain just about all of it. And I'm not going to be appointed the FBI director.
Yeah, sure.
I am not going to. Well, you're right. I did work on the curvy couch.
You did work at Fox and Friends. You might.
The defense secretary did replace me on Weekend Fox and Friends.
Thank you. Your replacement was the current defense secretary. I think you
That's
might
fucking
be
wild.
Getting a call.
That's fucking wild, by the way. You might be the press secretary, and I might be the.
Excuse me.
Well, I don't know what
press secretary. Why not Secretary of State? Why do I have to be the press secretary?
You're right. Actually, you're overqualified.
To be
judging by the current standard for
anything
for press secretary. The current Secretary of State is blowing my mind, and we won't get into this right now. But make Gaza beautiful again is what Marco Rubio put on X yesterday.
Wow!
Which made my fucking head explode.
But
thankfully,
we have so much to talk about with Gaza. We'll have to save it for another time. But I mean, this is finally Donald Trump, something he's good at. Let him go try that.
But now we're going to talk about what is probably the biggest story in the country, if not the planet, and that is Elon Musk, the world's richest man, has now become the world's second most powerful man, at the very least, the co-president of the United States, as many have labeled him. He is determined that he's going to save $2 trillion from the federal government, even though that would certainly imply Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Dismissed with that number. He is taking a hatchet to the federal government, and now he has the keys to the castle of the Treasury Department's payment system.
And when Democrats have tried to fight him, they've been blocked at the door of a federal building.
USAID.
Correct.
It is wild, and few people know more about Elon Musk, the world's richest man, the CEO of Tesla, the CEO of SpaceX, the CEO of, Starlink, of how many other companies? X, I almost forgot about Twitter, X, and now spending all his time in the federal government. He is an unelected bureaucrat. Well, unelected bureaucrats always make decisions regarding the federal government and departments and
They're
spending.
not co-presidents.
True. They're always unelected people in the executive branch making decisions that they were not elected to do, correct?
Sure, but they're like consultants. He seems to be actually pulling the levers of things and getting access, as you pointed out, to our private information.
Yeah, I'm concerned that he has access to the Treasury Department's payment system.
Yeah, I would be concerned.
And
about
there
that.
are questions of whether or not he can control the on and off knob, if you will. That's the real concern that I'm hearing from people inside, is that not just that he can see it, but he can actually tweak
What
that
does
system.
he not have access to? I mean, he might have access to all sorts of things. There's no transparency. We don't know what Donald Trump... As we know, Donald Trump plays loose and fast with classified information. Maybe he's sharing all sorts of things with Elon Musk. Why would we think he isn't?
But before we get into the seriousness of this, and we are waiting on Simon Shuster from Time Magazine to hear us, how long do you think this relationship... Oh, are you with us? No, I think he's losing patience.
Well, first of all, you said in one of our last Sanity episodes, you said that you thought that the splintering of the relationship, I think you said it would be Marco Rubio, that you thought that he would be the first one.
I thought, wow, we might see Rubio exit in the first month. And then we learned really quick.
Yeah.
He has...
No spine.
He is not just drinking the Kool-Aid. He is...
Guzzling it. Bubble chugging it.
Beer bonging
He's beer bonging and bubble chugging the Kool-Aid. I thought that he'd been hacked. When I read his statement, I thought that somebody had written the statement for him and he'd been hacked. Because that was not even language that Marco Rubio
I had
used
the same
to
thought,
use.
that he must have been hacked.
Yeah.
When you go back, the moment that I couldn't believe with Elon Musk, and I'm always trying to figure out what he's up to, was the moment he came out on that stage and he did the weirdest jump
I know. Boing,
any
boing,
man has
boing.
ever seen.
He was on a pogo.
And yet the bros, the Elon bros were like, yeah. And I'm like, that shit ain't right.
That's
like,
not
if you
right.
jump like that,
Ain't right.
something ain't right.
You are not a paragon of masculinity if you're jumping
Something
on a
ain't
pogo
right.
like that.
That was
I agree.
weird, man.
That's why I want to talk to Simon, and God willing, we'll get him on, because I want to know what's wrong.
I think we'll give him a 2-minute warning and then we'll cut Simon loose because he's been very patient.
He
And look how
has,
fucking handsome he is,
He
right?
is handsome.
I didn't realize how handsome he was. He looks like he could play like the Englishman in a, right?
He does. He looks like an English actor.
But Simon Shuster writes for Time Magazine, and he wrote an incredible piece entitled How Elon Musk Became a Kingmaker, which I recommend all of you read. It's a fantastic piece in Time. You can find it online. And now he has an update coming to that with what Elon is up to now. Is Simon with us now, guys?
Okay, he's here. Hi, Simon. Do you hear us?
You look damn good, Simon, but you don't hear us.
Simon. Simon says. Simon says nothing.
Yeah, it might be possible.
Holy cow!
We can hear you. Okay, so let's bring in now, at long last, Simon Shuster of Time Magazine. He has written an incredible piece about Elon Musk. How do you explain Elon Musk's personality and his proclivities?
Well, I was first assigned onto the Elon beat at Time Magazine back in November when, it became clear that he would be quite a significant player in the Trump administration. Back then, I remember when we ran a cover story about him, we compared him to William Randolph Hearst, the 1930s newspaper magnate who helped FDR come to power. That was the only precedent we could think of where a private citizen, a businessman, a very wealthy businessman, had such power over the executive branch of the U.S. government. Now, for our next magazine, we plan another big story about Elon, and we decided that actually he's blown past that milestone of William Randolph Hearst, and he seems to wield much more power than really any private citizen that we can think of in American history. If any of your listeners or viewers can help us with our historical precedents, I'd be most grateful. But really, the frame that keeps us focused on him is the fact that he is wielding power like no private American citizen that we've ever seen before. And it's not clear what's driving him. It's not clear who he's accountable to, if anyone, what his mandate is. And that's starting to cause some resistance and certainly, raise a lot of questions as more and more people, lately government workers, but more and more people feel the pain from the actions he's taken against the bureaucracy, against the federal government.
I read that piece that you first did on Elon, and I watched the interview that you did with Dave here. And at that time, you said, the question is, what does Elon want? And at that time, you said he really wants to go to Mars. He wants to colonize Mars. He wants humans to go to Mars. Is that still what we think is driving him, or has it changed and now it's just power?
No, I think that ambition is immovable in his mind. From everything I hear from his associates, friends, people in his social circle from Silicon Valley and elsewhere, people who have worked at his companies or with them, they all say he is single-mindedly focused as his life goal of reaching Mars, or as he often puts it, making human beings an interplanetary or multiplanetary species. So from everything I'm hearing, yes, that appears to be the goal. Now, how his control and his actions over parts of the federal bureaucracy play into that ultimate goal, it's an interesting question. But I think we can assume that he is, and I've heard this from one of his associates, that he sees direct or indirect control of the federal budget as a way of speeding along the work of SpaceX and other parts of his business empire to get to Mars.
But why?
So
He'll
it's
be able to funnel,
deregulation.
if DOGE cuts a lot, he'll be able to funnel more money towards his own project to Mars?
Deregulation. In a word, it's deregulation. So he was very frustrated on many levels with the government oversight that he faced at SpaceX and other companies that he runs. And he, partly out of what seems to be a kind of vendetta, but also as a practical matter, wants to uproot the systems that were regulating, hindering, slowing down his ambitions, first and foremost, the ambition of getting to Mars.
Simon, have you gotten into any of his psychology? He seems manic. When he went and was making everybody at Twitter work out night after night and not go home and sleep there, and now jump. Dave and I were talking about that time that he was sort of on a pogo, his personal pogo on the stage with Donald Trump and jumping around. Have you gotten into any of his psychology? What's going on? I mean, I know you're not a psychologist, but has anybody ever suggested that he's manic or that he has something else psychologically going on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the biography by Walter Isaacson talks quite a bit about this demon mode. It's kind of a manic mode that he enters when he's really hyped up about a project and pursuing it with everything he has. He stops sleeping. He gets very emotionally attached and quite demanding, very demanding of the people around him and of himself. I think another book biography that sheds quite a bit of light on this is called Character Limit, which is a book about Elon Musk that I'd recommend. It focuses on his takeover of Twitter. And I spoke to a US government employee under the kind of Homeland Security Department hierarchy, who described her team within that department being in a kind of defensive crouch as they prepared for the onslaught from DOGE. And what they were doing as they waited for that is reading Character Limit, reading what Musk had done at Twitter, which is a very instructive parallel. And the parallels have been quite uncanny, including the way that he threw himself into that work at Twitter and really in a manic way, or you could say demon mode.
I don't know if you can hear me now. I'll try to talk a little slower, Simon. What can we learn from what he did at Twitter, now X, in that he took a hatchet to the workforce? Fidelity wrote down the value of X some 80%. So how does that lesson apply to the federal government?
And he also reduced the staff by about 80%. It depends kind of who you ask. So I have spoken to people, Musk's associates, and generally people in Silicon Valley. There is a very common view there, I'd say close to a consensus, that, hey, he proved that you could cut 80% of the staff and reduce costs that dramatically within such a large and complex organization, and it still works. Yes, there was quite a bit of chaos early on, a couple of years ago when he was doing this, but the thing still functions. And after that, it's sort of about arguing how well does it function. I mean, he ripped out content moderation. He ripped out all of the, well, not all, but many of the dimensions or parts within that structure that we thought were essential and that helped a lot solve certain problems. But there weren't problems that Musk was interested in. It seems like that is what he's doing. He's not interested in the work of USAID. And I think he's trying to demonstrate, and honestly, I think he has a chance of success here, that yes, it'll cause pain, it'll cause chaos. As Musk has put it, it'll cause temporary hardship. But a few months from now, I think a lot of his loyalists and supporters and fans, and even some people on the fence about him, will look back and say, hey, it didn't affect me too much that USAID was gutted. And the voices of the people who were directly affected, that depends. That is now their time to stand up and really try to advocate for themselves and against what Musk is doing, and to show us that, yes, it has an impact what he's doing. But really, I think people have quite a short attention span and a short memory when it comes to some of these really dramatic actions. That, for me, is one of the most illustrative and important lessons from the Twitter experience. The thing still works.
I, like Simon, I use Twitter and I think, wow, it works pretty well. And you know what?
It's a cesspool.
Hold on. It arguably is more relevant than it's ever been.
Why? How?
Advertisers are coming back, including Amazon. Just came back. They are getting advertisers back. The platform still works as it did.
I wouldn't say that it does. I don't. I think the reason I don't think it does is because I think that people have turned. A lot of people, thoughtful people, have turned away from it because of the content moderation.
Go to Blue Sky.
Simon,
enjoy that. Where are they going?
Substack, baby. I think number one, but I also think it's not just his parsimony. Let's be quite clear. USAID was investigating Starlink, so we can pretend. Yeah, we can pretend that this is him just trying to cut corners and make it all more efficient. But he's also shutting down any oversight that that the government is trying to do for him. Simon, yes?
Yeah, I've looked at that point about USAID, looking into, or the Inspector General at USAID looking into some of the work that SpaceX did with Starlink, actually the provision of Starlinks to Ukraine, which just kind of complicates the issue quite a bit. The thing is, it's difficult to find a government agency that did not in some way touch, oversee, regulate some part of Musk's business empire. It's so enormous, and there are so many points of contact and friction between Musk, his business empire, and the U.S., the federal government, that any agency that he goes in there and tries to gut, I think there's a good chance of finding some conflict.
Simon, I'm always curious. No one has ever lasted in Trump's universe. No one, not even his family. They've disappeared.
Has he actually disappeared, his family?
Sean Spicer, Anthony Scaramucci, so many characters. Look at Mike Pence, who gave his entire life and his political career only to be threatened to be killed on Capitol Hill and now is erased. How long can this relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump last? And where would the breaking point potentially be? How long?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we first did a deep dive back in November, I mean, I was hearing, and I felt pretty sure myself, that this would be a very rocky and volatile relationship. It has proven more resilient than I expected. I think than a lot of people expected. But there are a lot of potential, breaking points. I think if Trump gets the impression that Musk is really stealing the limelight and acting like a president or a shadow president, and that he's getting credit for initiatives that Trump feels he deserves credit for, that could be kind of a point of egos clashing. But more fundamentally, I think they're useful to each other.
Simon Shuster, Time Magazine, you are a gem. We really appreciate your patience first and foremost.
No
your
problem.
Handsomeness second. But your knowledge is really we really appreciate you being with us. Please come back and do this. Will you have a drink with us next time or no?
You got it. Yeah.
Oh, you have one there. Oh, it's water.
Just water, but yes. Next time I'll get something different.
Simon Shuster, Time Magazine. Check out his last piece How Elon Musk Became a Kingmaker. What's the next piece called?
I love the headline they came up with. It's 1,000 cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
We left out the death by, but yes.
Yes, I added that. I added that. Simon, thank you so much, my friend. We really appreciate you joining us here on Sanity.
Thanks,
man.
Simon.
He is awesome. I mean, is there anybody
Thank
that
you.
has more insightful
Not that I've spoken to.
knowledge about the man, the character, the businessman? I found that conversation absolutely gripping. Yeah, I do think he's mildly attractive.
I know, no, you mentioned that. I get it. I'm picking up on that.
But he's
again,
brilliant.
Why doesn't anybody talk? Since Elon Musk's number one goal in life is to go to Mars, do we think he's an outer space creature sent from Mars? I do too.
I do.
I do too.
I actually don't
too.
think he's.
Earthling.
I
don't
think
think he's
he's
an Earthling.
either a droid or an alien,
Yeah.
or
I
I
mean,
don't think
obviously.
he's from this world.
He's not. He's obviously not an Earthling. It's clear. He's a droid because, like you said, he can't work this much. He can't know this much about technology. He can't have this many, and he's always, creating completely new technologies. It doesn't make sense. So the only thing that makes sense is that he's a Martian.
But is he easily the most fascinating person on the planet? And I don't think there's a close second. Who is even in that stratosphere?
I don't know. I'll have to.
You're
think about
talking
that.
about running two, let's call it three, of the most important companies in the world, in X, Tesla, and SpaceX. And the reason I say that about SpaceX, they are leading the space race, essentially replacing NASA, and Starlink might be the most important, underrated technology in the world because they might bring Wi-Fi to the entire globe.
I know, and they call the latest SpaceX thing in November or December. They caught
With
the shuttle
mechanical chopsticks.
Yeah, like who did he think that up? Because if so, he's not from Earth. I mean, I just can't underscore that enough. He's thinking outside of the box in a way that is so otherworldly.
I can't think of a human that I'd rather just be a fly on the wall. I don't necessarily need the interview because I don't think the interview would be all that insightful. I just want to put a mic on him and follow him around for a day or two and just see how he gets through all this. I actually think what did he call it? Simon called it demon mode?
Yeah, he has.
So
demon mode.
that is really interesting.
I agree.
By the way, because I think that explains a lot, right? He lives in silos, and I don't think he's not a multitasker. I think he gets totally consumed with one project at a time.
Yeah. I mean, what I was trying to get out of Simon was, some people have suggested, but this is just armchair analysis. I think, I admit I haven't read the Walter Isaacson book, so maybe this has already been proven. But does he have Asperger's? Is that a proven diagnosis that he has?
I mean, that's without question,
but
right?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, is that a known thing about him?
He has acknowledged it.
Oh, he has. He has said he
in
has Asperger's.
speeches,
Okay,
on
then
stage, in front of the
then
public.
that fits with your single-minded focus, but it doesn't explain the rest of it. It doesn't explain the rest of it.
Did what Simon told you reassure you or frighten you more? Because I'll answer first.
Go ahead.
I thought what he said about what he did at X actually reassured me quite a bit. Look, we are a panic society. We overreact. We wildly fluctuate. I know you disagree about X, but he did chop the labor force. He took an axe to it. And Fidelity, as I mentioned, came out. They wrote down the value of X by 80%, which means it's worth 20% what it was before.
So how's that great?
But now, those analysts that I've spoken to, because I cover the economy, are starting to say they're seeing the value come back up.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, when Amazon said we are back in as a permanent advertiser, there are whispers that Apple is going to come back in as a permanent advertiser. There is no replacement for it. I know people have gone to Blue Sky and they've largely come back. Substack is entirely different.
I agree.
It is a deep dive.
Yeah.
It is
Agreed.
it is more intellectual.
It is.
I don't think there's any replacement for X. I just spoke to the CEO of MGM who just made a deal with X, and he was unapologetic about it. And he said in his estimation There is no replacement. There's nothing else like it. Yes, there is TikTok and Meta, but for what they want to do, X is perfect.
I'm off X. I haven't done anything on it for months, and I can tell you, life goes on.
I don't tweet.
I do. Yes,
but I read it all the time.
Well, to answer many of your questions, there is nothing about any of this that comforts me. There is nothing about any of this that comforts me. I don't.
What is he up to then?
Corruption, massive corruption, funneling.
That's not an answer.
Why? How's that not an answer?
What does he want?
He wants no government oversight. We just heard that from Simon. He wants to no government
no
oversight.
Personal government oversight into his companies. Okay.
And so I think that.
And that's what you think USAID was about because they were investigating him in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. And so I think we're not panicking enough. I do. I think that we're not panicking enough. I think that, as he said, they can't find a single comparative person in history who has this much power in the government who's unelected. They can't find a single comparison. Hearst doesn't come close. So I think it's time to panic. Personally.
One question I wanted to ask Simon that I've asked him before, so I can give you the answer, is what does this wealth mean to him? He's worth more than $400 billion. That's almost twice as much as Bill Gates, who's the second richest person in the world. And I asked Simon prior conversation what that wealth means to him, and he said nothing. He doesn't care. He doesn't know. He doesn't spend. He doesn't live as a luxurious life. And I would just say that gives me a little comfort.
Great. Why doesn't he give it away?
Right. And that was another question I asked him. And so I asked Simon that as well in another conversation. And he said, it is one of the things that Time Magazine has been trying to do a deep dive on. And all they can find is they've set up the Elon Musk Foundation, in which they give millions of shares to annually. And Simon and all his research team, which is one of the best in the world, cannot find anyone who's ever benefited from that.
Then I guess he cares about his money.
But listen, just because he doesn't give away money doesn't mean he's solely focused on it.
Okay, but it doesn't mean if we're at that level.
You think he's trying to enrich himself? Because I genuinely don't.
I'm only basing it on the evidence. Why isn't he the most if he's the richest person in the world, as he is, why isn't he the most philanthropic person in the world?
Why does that matter? Because if you're rich, you have to be philanthropic?
No, but if you don't care
That's
about
bullshit.
Your money, if you don't care about your money, as you're saying, you say he doesn't care about his money.
He doesn't think about it. He doesn't think about giving or making.
Then give it away.
But he doesn't think about money. So he's not spending time thinking about giving away money or thinking about, bringing water to Africa or thinking about the things that Bill Gates does. It's not part of his thought process. I separate those things. Look, I would love for him to give away half of his wealth the way Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are, but I don't think that means he's solely focused on his wallet. I've heard he's actually living in the White House or the East Wing or sleeping on couches.
That's right. He's couch surfing on the taxpayer dime. I know. It makes it worse. He's couch surfing on the taxpayer dime. Do you know what they're calling enjoy your taxpayer dollars at work?
Do you know what they're calling his crew that follows him around now? You must, if you know The Office. If you don't know The Office, you need to fucking watch the greatest film of all time,
you mean
or top
TV
5.
Show?
Office Space. Excuse me.
Office Space.
Office Space.
No, what?
The Bobs. So if you don't know Office Space, please do yourself a favor. Go back and watch one of the greatest movies of all time that makes us all feel human, that we hate our bosses and we hate living in an office. So the Bobs are consultants that come into Initech and basically just slash people right and left. Just fire them, cut them, whatever. So they call them the Bobs when they come in. They're apparently between 19 and 25. The people that he has.
I know that. I've seen their pictures.
Cutting federal government.
I know that. Because, as we all know, teenage boys have the best judgment in the country. As we all know. They've proven that time and again. I like your encyclopedic knowledge of Office Space. I'm going to watch it again. I haven't retained
O-Face?
I haven't retained it as well as you have.
Oh, dear God.
I'm going to watch it again.
Okay. Right. O-Face? You don't know what O-Face is. No. Oh, my God. Jennifer Aniston.
I know. Jennifer Aniston's in it. I know
that. It is one of the great movies of all time. Jesus. Walking through, knocking down doors, beating the shit out of a fax machine.
Don't they call it what do they call it when she has like flourish, or you're supposed to wear like
Oh, flare.
flare.
Flare at tchotchkes.
Yeah.
They're the flare. How much? Oh God, The Office. See, I'm glad we came around to Office Space. One of the great movies of all time.
Well, again, you're welcome, America. So thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Sanity. We're gonna stay at it because
we had some warts.
Yes,
we can remove the warts.
Yes, we did. But I feel like we are well on the road to trying to gain sanity.
I mean, two incredible guests, James Galliano and Simon Shuster, in our first YouTube adventures. So yeah, it's going to be a fun ride. We're gonna have some turbulence to get back to the pilot reference.
I feel like a wing actually might have fallen off the planet.
Is it too soon to make plane jokes? I don't know. Maybe. But we are still flight attendants? Is that what we decided?
Flight attendants,
okay.
yeah.
Well, we are your flight attendants
on
this journey.
We're glad to have you on the ground. Okay. Ciao.